Hi everybody, Jonathan Mark Mendes, Painted Love, and welcome to my channel. Today's project is going to be this small table behind me, but nevertheless it's going to be jam-packed, full of information along the way. I'm going to go for a boho inspired feel on this piece. I generally with pieces like this, which is quite elegant, I generally go for that faded grandeur, traditional sort of look, but I'm not going to do with this piece. I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to go for a boho inspired with decoupage and a little bit of wood you bend trim around the edge. So let's take a closer look at the table. As you can see, there's a few scratches and lumpy bumpy bits in the leather. Nothing that detracts from it. I do quite like the colour of this leather on this piece of furniture, but it is going to be all changed up. The handles were missing. They were the round handles and they were missing the loops, and I didn't have anything to replace like for like. I do like that sort of handle, but we're going to go for a little tiny knob. Also, this is another area, this grooved area. It's kind of set back in comparable to the panels and the drawers on the side, and I don't really like that. I want to add a wood you bend just to beef out this edge, a little bit of trim and pattern on the edge. So let's get stuck in with that first. First up, I'm using this wood you bend trim to go around the edge. All I'm going to do is apply some quick and thick tight bond to the surface. This is a bit awkward because I'm doing it upright, but I'm just going to kind of apply to the surface kind of a liberal amount. There's little grooves in here, so some of the glue will be lost in the grooves. I'm going to go all the way around. I've got to work quite quick because I've got to heat up the wood you bend as well. You could do it in smaller sections, but I like to just wing it and go for it. I'm just going to leave that on there quite loose because I am going to smooth it out with a paintbrush as I go along. It went on quite well. Like so. And then go with my heat gun and the wood you bend. I'm just going to heat up, if it's plugged in, switch on, and just heat up. Keep the trims in the coil, because if you keep them in the coil, they'll retain their heat for much longer. If you try and unfurl them, they'll be harder to heat up. So try and keep them in a coil. These thin trims heat up really quickly, but they also cool down really quickly. So kind of get it a little bit hot, and then I'm going to try and push this glue around a little bit. Two things at once. That feels good. Right, back to heating up. Yeah, we're nearly there. Heating all the way through. That should be it. And try and keep it in its coil and straight on. No rhyme or reason to this, just go for it. It's a bit fiddly. I've let go of it, but I'm just going to go for it. It will cool down, like I said, quite quick, but we can heat up again. But it's just easy just to get it on in its position right the way around as quick as you can before it cools down. Oh, it's all good fun. Straight on, I'm nearly round. I'm stretching now as I pull it round. There we go, just about there. Oops, it slipped down a little bit, that's not a problem. just about there. Stretchy, stretchy. And then we can manipulate it a little bit more. It is messy, but it's meant to be. That's all part of the fun. Right. Nearly there. Right, I'm going to get my blade just to snip it. Grab your blade, an X-Acto knife if you're in another country. We call them Stanley knives here. I'm just going to cut it level, cut through that one and remove. And then we're going to go back in, cut the other one. That's just about it. I can remove that. Perfect. So now we can kind of stretch this and pull it around, manipulate it a little bit more, and we're going to heat it up again and keep on pressing down firmly, and it should be perfect. The base colour of the overall piece is going to be old white, a nice soft chalky white. But what I normally do when I'm using white, and definitely going over mahogany, and I know that this is going to send some kickback with bleed through, I would always go with country grey first. Now the reason I'm using country grey, it kind of knocks some of the warmer tones out of the wood, and it gives a great base coat to apply old white. If you do old white straight to brown wood, you're going to be about 3 or 4 coats before full coverage, whereas this will eliminate the amount of coat. So just applying a coat of country grey to the, all over it basically, even over the leather. We're going to go all over the whole piece, any what way. No rhyme or reason with this. Straight over the leather surface and into the wood you bend. With chalk paint being a fuller bodied paint, it also helps fill the little gaps which are just between the wood you bend and the surface that I applied it to. So it fills the gaps, it kind of makes it look all moulded and as one. It's perfect. So far so good. First coat on, this is one coat of country grey and it looks really good. Great coverage, which means for a great base coat of old white. So we've got the old white. This probably will still need 2 coats or like 1.5 coats over this. But I'm using a small artist brush this time round just to get into all of the nooks and crannies. And I'm just going to go straight over the top, and this will build up the old white to tap into that wood U bend there, just to get the colour into there and smooth out. So now I'm on with the decoupage part of this project. I've got these two gorgeous images, one in large, an A1 size, and one in A3. These are Posh Chuck Deluxe decoupage papers. I have to say, unfortunately, this pattern doesn't exist as of yet. I'm going to try and change that. When I went to HQ in Leeds and I saw Solly Joe, who produces these papers, which are awesome, I saw this on the desk and said, oh, I need to use that. And she said, take it, because we're not releasing it. Unfortunately, they'd found a discrepancy with it. I don't know what that was. I can't see anything wrong with it. I think it's beautiful. Guys, tell me what you think in the comments. Tell me if we think this should be released, because I think we could change that. I think we could change their minds. If this project looks good and you write loads of comments in the comment box below this video, maybe we can make them change their minds. Anyway, let's get stuck in with applying the top surface and the 3 drawers with the smaller image around the outside. Okay, what I've got is I'm laying this paper out just to kind of get a feel for where I want this pattern. And because it's super enlarged, it's really lovely. It's just textural and beautiful. I cannot praise it enough. I really love this pattern. And I've got a lip where the leather was, and that's where I'm going to work the paper to. Ordinarily, I just go straight over the surface with the glue and pop it on, but I want to get a perfect cut. So I think what I'm going to do, just to help myself out, this is chalk paint. So I'm going to give myself 1 coat of Infuser and allow it to dry. That should seal the chalk paint, and it'll keep the open time on the next coat of Infuser open for longer, so it'll be easy to work with. But I'm only going to put the Infuser right up to the edge. I'm not going to go across, because I don't want the paper to sit on this band, and then it means that I can probably put a little bit of Infuser over the top, let it dry, and it should go nice and hard, and then take my X-Acto knife and just cut into that crevice, so then we get the most perfect circle. You might ask why I wouldn't pre-cut this into the circle and measure it out. The reason I'm not going to do that is because these papers stretch and I would still end up with the same scenario at the end. So wish me luck, guys. Let's get stuck in. So I'm now on with my second coat of Infuser. Like I said, what that's going to do, the first coat, is going to just stop the chalk paint absorbing the infuser as quickly. So 2 coats on this leather top should be good. On the smaller areas that are not so fiddly, like the drawers, I'll just go straight on with 1 full heavy coat. But for this job, I know that I've got a bit of a fiddly job ahead. So again, working to that line where the connection between the wood and the leather top, I don't want to go beyond that line. I'm working quite quick. Like I said, this is the first time that I've done this way, so it's either going to be a hot mess or it's going to work out really beautifully. I don't know, but that's part of the fun when you're joining me in these tutorials. So, making sure that I've got enough infuser on to absorb into the paper. I'm going straight up to that line, but not going over the line. So hopefully that then won't stick. Not unless it squishes out, I don't know. We're soon going to find out, aren't we? There we go. Right. In for a penny, in for a pound. It's this side. And I'm just going to lay it over. You do get a couple of attempts of this if you need to peel back. I kind of like that there. I wanted some of this lovely green through the centre and some of the white. I have got my trusty brush, which means I can just smooth out any wrinkles, lifting up, working from the centre outwards, stretching the paper, lifting again, just pushing all of those little creases and bumps away, and that way, pushing out all the way around. Oh, it's lovely. Already I fell in love with this paper. I knew it would be gorgeous. So just working where the fold in the paper is, I'm just lifting up, smoothing out again. Yeah, that's lovely. Goes on like a dream. All of the excess will trim off afterwards. And I'm just feeling around so I know where this little lip is, so I know how far I'm pushing up to the edge. It's there, so yeah, it feels okay. I do feel like it's a little bit dry, so I'm going to just peel back this area. A little bit dry just there. I'm going to pop a bit more infuser just on this side. Along this edge. That's it. And back down. Pushing into that little crevice. We know that's where it's going to be cut. Yes. Lovely. Okay, so what I found, as it's nearly dried, I have got a little bit of, the paper's kind of lifted off where there isn't glue. And I've been able to use my thumbnail just to kind of push it into that crevice to give me that kind of outline. I think the first thing to do is remove the surplus paper that we're not going to need. It'll just make life a lot easier. I'm not going to worry about the paintwork underneath. It's going to need touching up. And we may need to kind of blend some colours in if I make a bad cut at some point. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this paper off. Look at all of this gorgeousness that I've got left. I may even do the internal parts of the drawers. Just waste not, want not. I would rather use as much of this paper, this gorgeous pattern, as possible. Yeah, I can now see, and then equally, if I've got this closer to the edge, I can lift the paper up and see where I'm cutting, just to make sure I've got a close cut to the edge of that rim. It's a little bit like when you're sewing and you kind of leave an edge. So, oh, it's just gorgeous, isn't it? Already, I'm just in love with this. Right, what we're going to do is, I've made that indentation with my thumbnail. I'm going to use my blade, just checking. I'm going to do a very light cut, slowly, gently into that crevice. Just taking my time over it. I was initially going to put some infuser over the top, but I decided not to. I thought I could probably handle it this way if I take my time. And then I'm going to infuse the whole thing, a couple of coats, which will act like a top coat. So it should be nice, kind of leather-like on top again, once it's had those layers. Yeah, this is working, but it's one of those things that I just think taking your time over it is going to be so worthwhile. I'm going to just remove a little bit from here so you can see, look through that, you can see the detailed lines. Now you really must wait for this coat to dry. If it's kind of moist at this point and you put your blade through it, you're going to get a jagged edge. So make sure it's dry. Use a hairdryer if you must to kind of dry the under layer of glue first, and then just take your time over it. Like I said, if it's slightly moist on the edges and there is an indentation in there where there is glue gathering, it will pucker. So that went really, really well. I did scuff a little bit of the paintwork, but this is going to have to be painted anyway. We're going to now give this a top coat. There is a little bit of lift off, so I need to kind of make sure this is nice and saturated all the way through. But the edge that we've got is so clean and crisp. So let's get some infuser over the top. I'm just going to use my paddle brush, palm paddle brush. I'm going to give it a real healthy coat. Like I said, this is dry. To give decoupage paper, rice papers like this, a top coat, I always think it's probably better to let the undersurface dry nearly fully before doing this, so then they can infuse together. So I am going over the white edge. I will go back and fill in afterwards. I'm just going to work this right into the paper, and most definitely the edges, just tucking things down. If there's any lift off anywhere, we want this to be really embedded. I say that word a lot with decoupage. I think it's about making it feel all as one. You know, making it feel as if it was always there. And just work this in. There's a couple of little lift off areas. on the edges, just checking those, but generally this is pretty good. The paper is gorgeous. So I'm just going to whiz through the drawers. The drawers only had one coat of old white because I knew that I was going to decoupage over them. So I'm just going to pop some infuser on this already preloaded brush very quickly all over the surface. And I'm not going to do a coat and let it dry and move on from it. I'm just going to go straight over the top of this. I know that I can work quickly because it's a small surface area, and I want to make sure that I get all of those grooves like so. And then we're going to drop in the decoupage paper, stretching as I go, like so. And then I've got my clean brush. This is a clean dry brush, and I'm just going to kind of pop that over the top. I might actually pick up another brush. Here we go. This brush will just get, this pointy brush will just kind of push into those crevices around the edge. I'm just tapping that in. You're going to get creases. It's going to happen on these edges. Without a shadow of a doubt, it will happen because it's got to stretch around lots of different corners. But if you use a brush like this and kind of tap it right into the crevices, you can kind of play around with it a little bit. All the way around. It's where the corners meet. You can flatten it out. And with some clever cutting and smoothing down, you will get this nice and smooth. I will do the same thing again. I will allow this to completely dry before adding the top coat of infuser. The reason I'm doing that is because where it's got to stretch into these crevices, it needs to kind of adhere before I start getting it wet again, because it will dissolve. If I'm not very careful, if I over wet it, it will dissolve. That's kind of gone on beautifully anyway, so just take your time over everything. It will really come out to your advantage. Just making sure it's really pushed into those crevices. It's kind of stretching. The paper does stretch. Lovely. Right, we'll let that one dry and do the same with the next one. So another good technique with this, then they're very nearly dry now. There's a little bit of moisture. But what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that the paper's kind of close to the edge. So I'm just peeling back. I'm not allowing it to wrap around the corner. So I'm just making sure that it's away, free from the edge before we do this top coat. And it will help when removing the excess paper afterwards. It gets difficult if it's kind of wrapped round. I'm also pushing in with my forefingers as it's nearly dried now into the crevices. I can work that a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do, let's check this one. Yeah, there's a little bit more there. Where you can see where it's wrapped around the corner. I'm peeling back just up to the edge of the edge of that line. Peeling back because the excess glue, obviously I've painted it everywhere and it's gone around the edge. We want it to be free because we're going to take a bit of sandpaper and just remove any excess. Right, that feels pretty good. It's like I said, it's nearly dry to touch on this surface, I'm now going to give it its other coat of Infuser and allow it to dry again. I'm not going to push the paper down, I'm just going to give it a nice coat over the top, then allow it to really harden, and then we're going to sand the edges off, and it should be a seamless finish. The drawers have had a really good old dry. You can see how they've molded to the corners. As they're drying, you just need to keep on going back and making sure that, especially the corners where they pucker up, that they're pushed in. And all I'm going to do is take, this is 80 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to take to the edge on a 45-degree angle. I'm just going to kind of sand over the edge. Gently does it, and this will help just remove the paper that you don't need. Rip that down, and what you get is a cleaner edge off. I will go back with the paintwork and tidy things up, and then I can also go in there with the glue again and saturate it a little bit more, just to help the paper stick down, because you will get lift off on corners like there. There's a little bit of lift off, but don't worry about that. It doesn't mean you failed. It just means that you just need to work a bit more glue under there, but it will give you a clean edge. Let's go across the top of here. Get nice clean edges. It's working its way off. We pull that paper away, look, nice and clean. So you're getting that real clean, beautiful edge along the top and the bottom. And like I said, where you hit corners and things, you're going to need to go back with your Infuser and just tidy up a little bit more. We'll go right round the full drawer front. Now you realise why we peeled back, just to free it, just to free it up that little bit more, so it literally didn't stick to the edges of the drawers. And that's what you should end up with, a really nice moulded drawer front. And now I'm going to go back with some more Infuser, just touch up underneath the edges and give it a nice healthy coat, and it should harden off beautifully. I do think the whole project we're going to slightly sand the edges just off the old white, because I know that this is going to kind of get little scuff marks and chips, but nothing too heavy. No heavily distressing on this, just literally round the edges like we have done here. I'm going back in with my Infuser here to kind of stick down any lift off on the edges of the drawers after sanding, and then giving another full coat of Infuser to finish the drawer fronts. Whilst I'm waiting on the drawers drying, I've just been touching up with the old white. I've been going over this lip right up to the decoupage where the Infuser had gone over. So that's good to go. I've also been taking note of the drawers and the apertures. It is kind of tight for the drawers in this piece of furniture. So I've decided that I am gonna sand with a sanding block some of the details back. Unfortunately, I cannot do that on the wood U-bend because I didn't pre-stain it. So I'm going to go with a gilded finish on the trim, as on the handle and the little claw feet at the bottom, and tie all of that in together. So a little bit more touching up to do, and then I can move forward onto all of the finishing, the waxing and the gilding. Generally, when I'm doing a distressing technique on a piece of furniture, I would go for wet distress, but here it's not advisable because we've got the decoupage. We do not want to get this wet, but I am going to use this sanding block. This is a 120 spongy sanding block. It's not terribly abrasive. It's just going to take a little bit of time. The beauty of this sanding block as well, with the beveled edge on there, it's great for getting into the apertures of the drawers so I can clean up all of the edges of the drawers, ready for easy application of them. And also I can work over these little edges, the high grounds, around these apertures, just to bring back a fine line of the dark wood from underneath. Also, it's keeping it away from the wood U-bend, which doesn't have the dark colour underneath. That's going to be gilded. So just working over lightly. I will give it a light sand over my brush strokes, only lightly. I don't want to come back right down to the country grey. It's just the higher grounds that I'm just peeling back some of the darkness of the wood here and there. Okay, so slight change of plan. I'm not going to be using the gilding wax. Well, at least I don't think that I'm going to be using the gilding wax here, not unless I make a big mistake. I've decided, because I really like the distressing and the wood U-bend is not brown underneath, I'm going to fake it with a little bit of graphite paint and some dry brushing with an artist brush. If this fails, I will paint over it and I will gild it as I said originally. All I'm going to do is take a small amount of graphite on a brush, wish me luck, and I'm going to offload it a little bit, and I'm going to start on this drawer because I know that I can wipe it off. I'm just going to literally over the top, here and there, I can wipe it off there, just on that edge, just because I want that line. It kind of works. Once this is dried in, it should look like a distressing line. Right, let's have a go somewhere on this. I only want just randomly. We're just going to kind of bring back a little bit of the design on the edge, not much. I think it works. It just kind of blends in with the other distressing on the edges. So I'm not going to do the gilding. I think this kind of works for me. And people will never know that that has not been sanded away. I'm going to keep on going, see how it looks. So that's just about it for today's project. All that's left to do, as you can see, is apply a top coat of clear wax over the whole body of the piece, including the decoupage paper. Another layer of protection won't hurt in this case. And then I'm going to move on to the lovely little feet and handles on this project using some warm gold gilding wax by Annie Sloan. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on yet another tutorial. I will catch you all on the next one.